Alright, we're here, 2024 albums, let's hop into it. We have a lot to get through. Ridiculously stacked year, honestly up there as one of the best years in music history in general. I'm going to be going through my top 70-ish most favorites. If you want to see the full list, it'll all be down below. Anyways, let's begin at 70. We have Charm. This is my pick for Clairo's best album. It's a soft rock and sophisticated pop album, which is very soothing and honestly has a lot of soul in it, as well as psychedelics. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Why would I let you lay with? But I think again. I don't even try.
Next up, we got Schoolboy Q with Blue Lips, a hardcore hip-hop / jazz rap album, which got pretty overshadowed since it released early in the year. I mean, this year was just insane, but yeah, let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Blowing money fast, cash money ho. Ran through the dash, keys open doors, cash on the ground.
Next up, we got the collab album Return with Anderson .Paak and Knowledge. Sequel to the previous album, Yes Lord, we have Why Lord. Yes, No Worries is back with some neo soul, which is honestly just as smooth and maybe just as great as their first album. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
You got shades to hide your eyes. I know you're crying, you was dying, and the pain inside.
Next up, we got 2/3 of Radiohead back on the Smile with another project that they released after their initial album they dropped this year as well. We'll talk about that later, but this one, Cutouts, The Smile. Of course, an art rock album, but a lot more krautrock on this album here. A solid entry into the Smile's new discography. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we finally have the solo album release from Joba, a member previously on Brockhampton. We saw a lot of the other members drop their solo albums, but I was waiting for Joba's, and the album in question is Russell Boring, and it's an art pop / art rock album, which is progressive and atmospheric as well. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Let me know when you know.
Next up, we got Porter Robinson with Smile. It's an indie electronica / electro pop album. A much more introspective album here from Porter Robinson. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
It's not fair, 'cause I know you like the back of my hands. Don't you cry.
Next up, we got Cavalier and Child Actor with the album Cine, or Sign, however you pronounce it. It, of course, being an abstract hip-hop album. Child Actor, the one on production for the entire project. Overall, just a really good album with some great production. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Pass the knife. Put one on the table, are you able to go sacrifice what matters in life? Probably the dumbest shit I ever did. Nearly walked myself to a bed. When you only know how to make do, then you fall into taking the risk. The pawn gets sacrificed.
Next up, we got As Grande As by Grande Mahogany. This is a funk rock / psychedelic rock album, which is honestly quite complex. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Marciology by the legendary Rock Marciano, one of the best pens in the game right now. Of course, this being a drumless, jazz rap, boom bap, all of that pocket. Marcy always brings that baseline level of greatness, and you do see it here. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
My mink touched the ankles when I'm standing. Cartier bangles on my hands was on some hand-to-hand shit. Standing shit, been pimping and pandering. Wearing drip, the two go together hand-to-hand like companionship. Any bitch abandoned ship, I ain't tripping.
Next up, we got The Birth and the Death of the Universe Through Mount Fuji by 3776. It's an art pop and progressive pop album with an intriguing concept and quite rhythmic and complex production at times. A very playful album. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got The Cure out of nowhere dropping an album after quite a long time. A legendary band, most noted for their run in the 80s, now come back in 2024 with Songs of a Lost World. And it's quite what you'd expect. It's an alt-rock / gothic rock album. Still a very surprising release. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got K-Dot, GNX, a West Coast tribute through and through of the hip-hop scene, and also a victory lap from his huge year. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Fuck being rational, give them what they ask for. It's not enough. Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches that are really stepped, but it's not enough. Say you bigger than myself, but it's not enough. I get on their ass. Yeah, somebody gotta do it. I made them niggas.
Next up, we got Joanna Wong with Hotel La Rut, which is an art pop / progressive pop album based on a comedy sketch. Each song offering a vignette story of this hotel. It's theatrical, quirky, complex, just fun all around. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
You say you want to give up mysteries and life on the run. You're shaking now, it's tearing you down.
Next up, we got Floating Points with Cascade. This time, it's an IDM / progressive house album, which is much like his earlier works, so don't expect another promises going into this one. That album is a 10 out of 10, by the way. Anyways, let's play a sample and let's move on into the next album. Next up, we got the new generation jazz fusion legend Kamasi Washington dropping what might be his best album in a long time since he last dropped The Epic nearly a decade ago, which was one of the best jazz albums of the decade. This year, we get Fearless Movement, which offers some equally great highs that are on his magnum opus, but it's really difficult to top an album like The Epic. Anyways, let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Meaningful Stone with Angel Interview. Following up the surreal and beautiful album that dropped in 2020, we get yet another offering of dream pop and shoegaze, but this is an album that does step out of the comfort zone at some points. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Death's Dynamic Shroud with You Like Music, one of the many albums they've dropped this year. This would be my pick for the best one, however, and this is a collab album with Galen Tipton, but I don't know the specifics of that. However, I do know that this is one hell of a deconstructed club album, something quite surprising to come out of DDS's Discog. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Joey Valence and Bray with No Hands, which is a super energetic hardcore hip-hop album filled with lots of humor. Seems like Beastie Boys is back. Anyways, let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
The strings in a bow, whip so low, keep the underglow. Speakers drum thumping, beats bump bumping. Talk to my fist if you wanna say something. Don't you know that I pack a punch? Don't you know that I pack
Next up, we got MGMT with Loss of Life, a neo-psych album that has much of a throwback sound to it. It's not their best album or anything, but it is pretty progressive and melancholic. Let's play sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Thrust the dagger into the night, valiant flailing,
Next up, we got Navy Blue with Memoirs in Armor. Of course, this being an abstract and conscious hip-hop album. Very existential and somewhat spiritual. Navy Blue been on quite a run recently. Let's play sample and we'll move on into the next album.
In the event of your demise, we cried and kept it pushing. It's peaks and valleys, the totality I'm overlooking. That nigga did his dirt in secret, I let karma whoop him. Where it took him ain't no secret, it's an art to being decent, nothing partial.
Alright, we have reached the top 50. And next up, we got a band from the windmill scene, Tapir, with The Pilgrim, Their God, and The King of My Decrepit Mountain. Pretty lengthy title. This is a very calm indie folk and chamber folk concept album, which offers some mind-blowing highs like the closer of the album. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Mannequin Pussy with I Got Heaven, which is an indie rock / punk rock album, and it does pack a punch. There is lots of moments of noise on this album as well. Very energetic, very aggressive. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Nails with Every Bridge Burning. It's been a long minute since we've seen a release from Nails. This, of course, being a grindcore album, which is honestly Nails' most noisy, aggressive, and energetic album since their magnum opus, Unsilent Death. Nails is back in action. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Lupe Fiasco with Samurai. Still one of the best writers and performers. This time we get a jazz rap / abstract hip hop album. Of course, it being a Lupe album, it has a great concept as well. Very conscious and very poetic. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Strong, vibrant, meditative song of guidance designed to raise eyelids sublime and save assignments with warm regards and age kindness for today's climate. In the vein, the gang violence meets the gang's demises and it bangs, rises like wings on a plane, plus a pilot who can fly into the eye hurricane.
Next up, we got an EP with Frost Children and Haru Nemuri. Yeah, yet somehow this wasn't one of the most unexpected collabs of the year. Soul Kiss is the name. This is a new rave / digital hardcore album, and the surprising collab from Haru Nemuri here. The artist usually fit for J-rock and art rock and noise pop, all in between. Shows that she's very versatile and could go over nearly anything. But yeah, let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Boldy James and Conductor Williams on the production here with a collab album, Across the Tracks. I mean, you can't go wrong. Conductor, one of the best producers out there right now, and Boldy James just on a crazy run. It's under 30 minutes, so very short, but it is under 30 minutes of just straight heat, boom bap, and jazz rap. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Fuck if I blow trial, whole bureau know that a nigga high profile. Lucky got a double, Russell was looking at a dime. Grandma told me to slow down, I couldn't at the time. Wish I could do it all again if I could press rewind. I still walk them niggas down like this.
Next up, we got Glass Beach with Plastic Death. It's an indie rock and art rock album with heavy progressive elements, and it offers some quite complex and technical pockets all over the album with some really great highs. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Adrianne Lenker with Bright Future. Of course, the lead vocalist of Big Thief, here to drop another solo album. This, of course, being a singer-songwriter slash contemporary folk album. Super soft, very ballad-like and raw. Talk about jaw-dropping openers, this album definitely has one of them. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Tyler, the Creator, with Chromacopia. And you're probably wondering, Tyler, this low? Really? Yeah, well, this year is insanely stacked, even if Tyler is one of my favorite artists. This new arc in Tyler's discography, we get hip-hop and neo-soul album, but this time with a lot more progressive elements and much more experimentation compared to Call Me If You Get Lost. Probably Tyler's most introspective album yet. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Charlie XCX Brat. Much more of a throwback sound on this one. It is still electro-pop, but not in that hyper-pop pocket that some people know her for. Honestly, just a straightforward album, hard club bangers, with some of her best writing on an album yet. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Alright, we've entered the top 40. Next up, we got Father John Misty with how do you say this album? Mahashmashana, in that singer-songwriter and Baroque pop pocket this time. Honestly, probably my favorite FJM album, offering lots of luscious walls of noise and beautiful instrumentation all around. Do quite like the grand approach on this album. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Denzel Curry with King of the Mischievous South Volume 2, trap, Memphis rap, hardcore hip-hop, all in between. A sequel mixtape to one he dropped over a decade ago, and it's quite a nice contrast from his previous album being Melt My Eyes, which was a hip-hop masterclass. Anyways, let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
She know it, she ain't going nowhere. Leather Louis sweater, I can never sweater. Blowing up a phone, man, you gotta do better. A hoe gon' be a hoe, so you might as well let her. I'ma keep it P, you know the other three.
Next up, we got Sam LRC, however you say it, with A Lonely Sinner. This is a post-rock album with heavy elements of ambience and shoegaze. It's a pretty great concept album as well. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Ulcerate with Cutting the Throat of God, known for their incredibly stacked discography in their genre, this being what's called a dissonant death metal album. It fits in that sludge metal category as well, also technical death metal. By those genres alone, I'm pretty sure you get the point here. It's dissonant, technical, and crushing. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got the return of Machine Girl with MG Ultra, this being a digital hardcore album, which might honestly be my second most favorite Machine Girl album. It has an early 2000s sound that's very noisy, very chaotic, but still there is some psychedelic bangers in here. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Blood Incantation with Absolute Elsewhere. The metal genre has been eating good this year with so many great metal records, and this is one of them for sure. It's in that death metal slash progressive metal pocket, and it is one of the most creative metal albums to drop this year. A little spoiler alert here, there is another one we'll talk about soon. But yeah, let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Mavi with Shadowbox. This being yet another serving of conscious hip-hop and abstract hip-hop with lots of existential and depressive themes. He always manages to make you think with his very conscious writing, and the production on here doesn't disappoint as always. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Smoke till I'm out of breath to try to function. The guidance sun for my little brother, my combustion. I'm a robot for the media, show bones off from the preening. I've been roped off when you see me now, choked off from the scenery. Post-op is just
Next up, we got Freako with Where We've Been, Where We Go From Here. This is an indie rock album. Another album that got pretty overshadowed because it released early in the year. Super passionate, very anthemic, many great highs on this album. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Mount Eerie. Yes, the Mount Eerie with Night Palace, which is a pretty massive album with almost a 1 hour 30 runtime, filled with many different avenues. But at its core, it is a slacker rock / indie folk album. But of course, that's not nearly enough to describe this album. Mount Eerie gives us another fascinating adventure. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Julia Holter with Something in the Room She Moves. And wow, this is one hell of an art pop album. I do think this album is competing with her best. Super ethereal and atmospheric, progressive and grand, yet soothing and meditative. It's wild how an album of this caliber is this low. Just goes to show how stacked this year is. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. We are now in the top 30. Next up, we got the one and only Quadeca with his mixtape Scrapyard, an experimental hip-hop, art pop, electronic, all in between. There's a lot going on in this mixtape. I would say it's a much more casual album compared to his concept album he dropped earlier, but there's some quite depressive writing in this album. Production is on point here. Honestly, some tracks might be better than I Didn't Mean to Haunt You. Let's see where Quadeca goes next. Let's play sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Do you notice I'm new? I did my hair with a twist just for you.
Next up, we got Nala Sinefro with Endlessness. And this is a jazz fusion and progressive electronic album filled with ethereal instrumentation and endless atmosphere. Not gonna lie, my main draw to this album was seeing Morgan Simpson in the credits. Yes, the Morgan Simpson of Black Midi fame. But yeah, let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Maruha with Kanala as well. The band I've been keeping a hawk eye on ever since they dropped their fantastic EP in 2023, which was one of the best EPs of the decade so far. Now, while this new one doesn't quite reach the highs of the older EP Knock and Array, there are still some mind-blowing moments in that post-rock and post-punk pocket. The windmill scene just keeps eating. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Igloo Ghost with Tidal Memory EXO. This is a deconstructed club album / UK bass with some drill and even some electro-industrial elements in there as well. A super technical and dense album with complex rhythms and sampling, which has that hip-hop flair. I mean, there's a lot going on in this album. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Uboa with Impossible Light. It's been 5 years since the last solo album, and Uboa is back with another death industrial serving, as well as dark ambience. Another terrifying album. This is truly the whole scaring music right here. While the concept isn't as great as the album that dropped in 2019, this album is much more ambitious with much more grand scale production. I mean, the closer of this album is a Song of the Year contender. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Centuries with Snow as a Metaphor for Death. This is a noise rock / post-hardcore album with some moments nearing industrial rock. It's a super heavy, super dense album backed with some jaw-dropping, passionate performances, which has a lo-fi tinge to it. Very underrated album, this one. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Elucid with Revelator, the other half of Armand Hammer. Now, we know Billy Woods is one of the GOATs, but we haven't seen Elucid build up his solo discog yet much. 2022's I Told Bessie is still one of my favorite albums to come from that year, but this time Elucid takes a more daring approach, hopping into a much more experimental and abstract pocket, sometimes even bordering on industrial hip-hop. Paired with his cryptic writing, it's honestly a perfect match, fully diving into that avant-garde style. Many jaw-dropping moments on this album. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Where's the pit? There's a blade. A quick trip to glory if you slip. We on the way, my nigga. We came for everything, my nigga. Chaos hour, shadow play. Hammers hang on loop. I'm chewing at the bit. Hard to mark the day. Be not afraid.
Next up, we got Siverus with Maze Envy. And yep, this would be my pick for the most creative metal album of the year. Super heavy, super progressive, filled with an immense amount of suspense, which is sometimes hard to come by in albums like these. The way it's pulled off is pretty great. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got the legendary Jack White of White Stripes fame with No Name, a garage punk / hard rock album, a throwback to that classic sound with instantly catchy riffs and lots of energetic and passionate performances. Bro has still got it. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
I'm everything that you need. I'm inefficient, but I'm getting better.
Next up, we have The Melt Banana. After over a decade, they finally release an album. 2013's Fetch, still one of the most creative, groundbreaking, and futuristic experimental rock albums of the last 20 years. This time, the greatest J-rock band in the world is back with 3+5. It's quite hard to follow up an album like Fetch, but this album is still great. Of course, it is another serving of experimental rock and noise rock, but this time much more post-hardcore, yet we do still see some hints of that iconic glitchy guitar style. You know this year is goated when one of the GOATs returned. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Top 20. We are now in the top 20, and the person with the honor of the top 20 spot is Vince Staples with Dark Times. This is a conscious hip-hop and neo-soul album. Honestly, might be Vince Staples' best or close to his best, near Big Fish Theory. As the title suggests, much more of a dark album, very introspective as well, packed with some fantastic production. Vince really does go above and beyond on this album, deserving of the top 20 spot. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
I know that it's you. So black and
Next up, we got the Korean shoegaze mastermind that just never seems to miss, Paranol with Sky 100. Coming off of his best work that he dropped in the previous year after the Magic, Sky 100 is a much more noisy and dense shoegaze and noise pop album. Conceptually and writing wise, it's also much more uplifting than his previous albums, even though 2023's After the Magic was somewhat more hopeful. Super warm and vibrant album here. Much like the album cover, honestly fits perfectly. I mean, Paranol does it again. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Falling with Scissors with The Death and the Birth of an Angel. This being a metalcore slash breakcore album. Super noisy, super aggressive, with some mind-blowing sampling. I mean, there's a damn Monogatari sample in here. It's a pretty dark and pessimistic concept album as well. Even if it is just a short 20 minutes, it does put you in a whole trance with how much creativity it has to offer in its short runtime. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Armand Hammer with Black Label. Yes, only Armand Hammer would be able to make it with their throwaways in the top 20. Of course, this being an abstract and experimental hip-hop album. Dare I say this is top 3 Armand Hammer, with a discog as stacked as Armand Hammer, one of the greatest duos of the last 20 years plus. Of course, their throwaways are just as good, and Black Label is proving to be just great on its own, with a much more avant-garde style approach to the production and a much more cold and dark atmosphere enveloped by Billy Woods and Elucid's great writing as always. I mean, what can I say? It's Armand Hammer. Even the throwaways are fantastic. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Why else you think I'm in places like this? Death grips in the champagne room. My house of mirrors got 2 mortgages. You gotta play something at risk, something to be forfeited. You stand right there like teenagers in an orphanage. Faces in the window, runaway rhyme scheme, screwdriver in the ignition of a 94 tempo high ride to beat.
Next up, we got The Smile, aka 2/3 of Radiohead, with Wall of Eyes. Tom York, Johnny Greenwood, and Tom Skinner are back here. And this was the actual album they dropped this year. And wow, is there some absolutely stunning moments on this album. Of course, this is an art rock album with some post-rock and krautrock elements as well. Tom York's vocals is always on point, and we get some beautifully haunting and progressive instrumentation. Tracks like Bending Hectic is easily able to fit in Radiohead's discography up there in the big 3 of their albums. That's how high the highs are on this album. It's absolutely fascinating. They still got it, bruh. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Despite these things, despite these arrows, I force myself to.
Next up, we got a modern underground legend, Ka, with The Thief Next to Jesus. The very unfortunate news I have to bring here is that we did not know that soon later, after this album dropped, Ka would pass away, leaving this as his final album. And honestly, it's quite a perfect way to close off his discography. Ka, always known to take over that conscious hip-hop pocket, delivering mind-blowing storytelling and imagery with dense poetry and thought-provoking verses every time he speaks. He was truly an underground legend, one of the GOATs, and it is very unfortunate to know that he did pass away. R.I.P. Ka, one of the GOATs. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Intuition knows without vision always took a toll on my body, but the soul probably may you live a nice long life, hope it. May you live a nice long life, hope it.
Next up, we got the one and only JPEG Mafia with I Lay Down My Life for You. You must be wondering, what? JPEG Mafia not in the top 10? What is going on? Yeah, like I said a billion times already, this year is absolutely insanely stacked. We get another serving of experimental hip hop from JPEG Mafia, but as you would know if you do know, no Peggy album is the same. This time we get more of a rap rock approach, or even rap metal at some points, so it's a whole completely different feel. Peggy probably my pick as my #1 most favorite artist currently, and after this album, his run is getting a bit ridiculous, so I think it's time to consider him in some conversations. Off the wall energy, extremely passionate performances, mind blowing production. This guy just does it all. A creative mastermind that is still ahead of everyone else, and he hasn't stopped pushing the boundaries after every single release, cementing himself with one of the most stacked discographies in hip hop history. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Chat Pile with Cool World, the highly anticipated follow-up to their debut in 2022, which was really great. Chat Pile is back with some more noise rock and sludge metal. While it isn't as heavy or as dark as their debut album, it is still very heavy, very dark. It's political, it's apocalyptic, it's quite horrifying at moments as well, and it offers some of the best performances from the band yet, offering great noise that borders industrial rock at times, and it has that sound that's able to fully encapsulate what's going on in the world right now. And as you could probably guess, it's not pleasant. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Hakushi Hasegawa with Maho Gakko, and this just might be their best album yet. It takes the art pop, glitch pop, and progressive pop elements of their debut album, as well as the jazz pop elements too, but it gets taken to a whole new level of chaos. Like the production on this album sometimes reminds me of a Sophie album or an Arca album with that deconstructed club noise, yet there's still moments of stunning vocal deliveries and mind-blowing instrumental passages which are densely layered. Some points it's chaotic, some points it's very jazzy, but at some points it's very subtle, calm, and meditative. This was definitely one of my most fun first-time album listen experiences, and I do revisit it very often. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got the one and only Jordy Griep of Black Midi fame dropping his solo album, The New Sound, and the very weird description I always give Black Midi: avant-garde, progressive jazz rock. Of course, Jordy Griep is here to fulfill that, but it's Griepified times 10. It truly is a solo Jordy Griep album. Now, Morgan Simpson is in the credits. Of course, he's not fully alone, but we see Jordy Griep exaggerate his writing, and on the production side as well, it's just everything exaggerated to the max. Like, there's some Latin elements in here as well. It is just so over the top, and I guess that just fits Jordy Griep perfectly in the album title as well, The New Sound. But yeah, it is without a doubt one of the best albums of the year, and there are moments on this album that does compete with Black Midi's discography, which is of course a good thing. Let's hope Black Midi is not disbanded forever. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Take me, and I want your lips to be unimpressed, and I want you to ask the waiter if I really am who I say I am, and I want you to blush, I want you to...
Alright, we have entered the top 10. Let's begin. Next up, we got the legendary Beth Gibbons with Lives Outgrown. This year is still proving it is full of surprises because a solo Beth Gibbons album is unheard of. The last one we got dropped in 2002, and of course we don't get anything from Portishead anymore, but wow. This might be worth all the wait. This is a chamber folk album that's progressive and psychedelic as well at some points. And if I was making a list for the best albums of the year, this would be at number 1 or number 2. We'll talk about another album later. This is the type of album that will have your jaw dropped on the ground through its entire runtime. I mean, I could easily say this is the best produced album on this entire list. It is so melancholic and atmospheric, and writing and performance wise, it is just absolutely stunning, building on many existential themes. It's very reflective and introspective, and at many points in this album, there are moments that could make your hair stand up. While this is at number 10 for my most favorites, like I said, if I made a best albums list, this would be at the very least at number 2, a borderline 10 out of 10 album. I guess just being a member of Portishead means you just never miss. A must listen album for sure, delicately made, filled with endless detail, crafted like a diamond jewel. I could glaze this album forever. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
I'm floating on a moment, don't know how long. No one knows, no one can stay. All go into nowhere. All go.
Next up, we got Knocked Loose with You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To. Quite a contrast from the previous album on this list. This is a heavy, dense, aggressive, and noisy metalcore and beatdown album filled with pessimism in every single corner, lined up with manic and jaw-dropping performances, and is backed with crushing yet dissonant production at times. It's a pretty short album, under 30 minutes, yet it packed so much into that runtime. What this album also packs is a clean right hook straight to your jaw with its hard instrumentation. It's honestly just metalcore bangers, because Knocked Loose somehow managed to make it accessible yet still so crushing. This might just be the most angry album on this list, and that is saying a lot because we've gone through a lot of very angry albums. The fact that it's able to condense and put out so much emotion in such a short runtime is truly fascinating. While Beth Gibbons will make your hair stand up with the beautiful, haunting production and progressive production that is ultimately satisfying, Knocked Loose manages to do the complete opposite, yet you still get the same result. Relentless, endlessly aggressive, crushing, and pessimistic. This will make your hair stand up for a whole different reason. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
I long for separation. In the lining glow, every breath tries hard to escape. The rain is over now. Have you found your grave? Suffocate!
I feel like we got a lot of legends out this year. Next up, we got the legendary GYBE, aka Godspeed You Black Emperor, with no title as of 13 February 2024. 28,340 dead. This being a GYBE album, of course, it is in that post-rock pocket with drone as well. But what GYBE managed to accomplish here is emotional resonance without saying a single word. Once again, of course, with the title, the whole concept of this album is surrounded by a triumphant protest of the whole situation going on in Gaza. It's progressive, it's very suspenseful, it's apocalyptic and atmospheric as well. It does have that classic GYBE flair, and just with the track titles alone and the passionate instrumental building blocks that build this entire album, a story is told without a single word. And the way GYBE is able to pull this off every single time is fascinating. This is honestly one of their best albums, yet the unfortunate reality is this album is based on something going on right now. GYBE are always ones to nail topics like this and infuse their somewhat dystopian albums with a bunch of realism, and it just leaves you in complete awe. GYBE still proving they are one of the best bands of all time, and the fact that Beth Gibbons and GYBE dropped an album of this caliber this year alone just makes this one of the best years. But at some point you do feel guilty for taking in this album because it was birthed from something truly horrifying, yet it does end off in a bittersweet tone. I mean, what else can I say? GYBE just does it again. Post-rock, masterclass. This album would definitely be up higher if I did make a best albums of the year list, but still, it is my top 8 most favorite album of the year. GYBE managed to accomplish something truly fascinating here once again. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Chelsea Wolfe with She Reaches Out to She Reaches Out to She. What a title. It's a dark wave and post-industrial album, but the thing that separates this album from the rest of her discography is that it has elements of trip-hop in it, giving that pseudo-Portishead feel. It basically checks all the boxes for my favorite genres, but especially that Portishead feel. The vocals are also taken to another level on this album, with some of the most haunting and straight up the best performances Chelsea Wolfe has done on an album yet, and the contrast is it's backed up with that dark, ominous, and eerie production. It definitely nails all of the industrial elements, especially leaning into some industrial rock, and it's almost used as a coating for this album to just further support some of the fantastic writing all throughout. She did later release an album version of this without all of the trip hop elements, and listening to that, even though it was great, just fully cements the idea of the trip hop elements in this album is truly what makes it whole. It's a combination of that and also the post-industrial elements with all the electronics that just have absolute perfect synergy, and when it's gone, it's just really apparent. It almost leaves a hole in the album. Chelsea Wolfe does have some fantastic albums under her belt, but this just might be her best one yet. It's able to fully encapsulate the sound of dusk. Very fitting that the closer of the album is called Dusk as well, and it's just super consistent front to back, with multiple Song of the Year contenders just on this album alone. Punchy drums, ominous electronics, stunning vocal performances that all form together to make a very hypnotic and dense album experience. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Lustig Puppy with Carousel from Hell. This is an industrial hip-hop album, but that's not all, because this just might be one of the hardest digital hardcore albums I've heard in a minute, and it's all in that electro-industrial pocket as well, akin to like a Death Grips. And by the album cover and the name of the artist, you could probably tell what type of album this is thematically. I probably won't be diving into that part of this album too much in this mini review right here, but what I do want to absolutely talk about is the production. Carousel from Hell is only 20 minutes or under 20 minutes. It is a relentless, fast-paced, blistering album. Performance-wise, it's also highly aggressive and at points very manic. LSP does not fail to bring the high-octane energy. It's an album that's able to compress so much in its short 20-minute runtime. It almost becomes an information overload and jumbles your entire brain. Being so short also makes it very addictive. You almost get stuck in a loop. It's able to provide abrasive ear candy that you just can't get enough of. Like, this is already one of my most listened to albums, according to my Last FM stats. Pounding production that could rattle your skeleton with those rumbling low ends, and it's also contrasted by the piercing electronics and high frequencies as well, on top of LSP's screeching performances at some points, intensely rhythmic and chaotic that could leave you in complete confusion or in awe. And writing-wise, you could have fun diving into that on your own. But yeah, LSP manages to deliver some peak abrasive ear candy. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we got Shushu with this title. very long album title. The artistic chameleon duo, now trio, is back with another serving of either the most horrifying music you've ever heard or some of the most unique art pop you've ever heard. But this time, on this album, we get a new look into Shushu's psych rock style. I describe them as a chameleon because they're pretty much able to discover any genre. Most people might know Shushu from their art pop style or their industrial, post-industrial, even death industrial at some points with those terrifying albums. They also did some noise rock early in their discog as well and in their new half, but it wasn't as prominent. But this time we get a psych rock Shushu album, and there is elements of noise rock and post-industrial as always. But it is a new, fresh look into this new world of Shushu. Of course, the main vocals from Jamie Stewart is always going to be the same spoken word like style that can be very poetic and dark or anxious and dense. He's able to strike vivid imagery very well, but the thing that makes this one of my most favorite Shushu albums ever is that it's so much more accessible compared to their other albums. Yes, it still has those moments of that avant-garde style and some experimentation, but it's wrapped in a more accessible and digestive album. If I were to recommend Shushu to anyone, I would definitely send them this album first, and they could go discover the horrors and depths of their discography on their own, because Shushu definitely has some of the most terrifying, soul-crushing, and straight-up horrifying albums ever. But hey, they also got a few art pop albums, but this album isn't sacrificing any creativity or any of that Shushu flair. They just managed to make a really accessible album in a psych rock, experimental rock, and post-industrial style. Like how they managed to nail their art pop style, that noisy style of art pop. Here we see Shushu refining their sound and exploring a new genre in the psychedelics, and they nail it pretty well for their first try. Very excited to see if they decide to adventure off into more of these psychedelics in the future albums, or maybe next is another terrifying serving of death industrial Shushu. Whatever it is, Shushu is always full of surprises, always bending their creativity and natural artistic nature to break boundaries and explore while still being able to evoke strong emotions through whichever avenues they decide to pick. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album before I end up yapping too long.
Ich werde as the sky spiraling, take the sound spiraling neath the ground.
Next up, we got Vampire Weekend with Only God Was Above Us. Now, before this album, I wasn't really buying the hype for Vampire Weekend. I thought they were a pretty okay band with a couple good albums, but this album changes everything. No doubt in my mind, this is Vampire Weekend's best album yet, and I do think it does gap all of their other albums. Earlier in the list, I mentioned how Beth Gibbons' Lives Outgrown, that album was the best produced album on this list. Well, Vampire Weekend's Only God Was Above Us is probably the second best produced album on this list. It's an indie rock, chamber rock, and neo-psych album with many other layers and genres as well. It's an eclectic and complex album that's also very conscious and existential. Performance-wise, it is also very passionate, and at some points it gets very orchestral, and the way the mixing is handled, you could hear everything so distinctively clear and crisp, yet it's able to provide a surreal, energetic, and somewhat warm, hopeful feeling that's instantly infectious to any ear. It builds on a lot of atmospheres with those winding guitars, offering such a unique sound to envelop this album, and at some points we get otherworldly moments of just insane instrumentation, providing a highly psychedelic, melancholic, and melodic style that is nailed to near perfection. Like, the performances are so locked in on this album that at some points it sounds like a live album, but they're able to just nail that sound so well that it just feels so natural. I don't even know the right way to describe it. It's like you're in the room with them while you're listening to this album, and you're able to pick apart each and every corner and layer of music and sound that you hear in the room so clearly. It's quite an infectious energy that's also very unique, and it becomes incredibly catchy with how they're able to effortlessly make very hooky choruses and addictive breakdowns. This is definitely what I would call a headphones album. If you have a really great sound system, this album is instantly so much better, but the casual listening experience is still absolutely fantastic. An album with many, many layers to peel, and my pick for Vampire Weekend's best album yet. Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album.
Break is clean. Something's gonna change, and when it does, which classical remains?
Top 3, man. Next up, we got the one and only, the legendary, one of the greats, and probably my pick for the best band of all time, Swans with a Live Rope. Swans, one of the masters of experimental rock and post-rock, next to bands like GYBE, and we talked about their album earlier in the list. When it comes to Swans, it's a whole different behemoth. Well, I still think bands like GYBE are still in the discussion, but what Swans is able to consistently do is reach peaks of music that I don't think I've ever heard from anyone else anywhere. The slow burn drone style that's extremely progressive and builds up into something so explosive and very satisfying that it is just very difficult to come by anywhere else. But bands like GYBE do border near this, or sometimes even nail it in Swans fashion. I think the best way I can describe Swans is a slow cook oven roast ribs that is cooked with so much care and delicacy and patience, and when it's finally complete, you reach that ecstasy, that climax, the explosion of flavors, bone perfectly sliding off the skin, very crisp yet tender, perfectly describes what Swans is. It can be quite hard to get into Swans because their albums are very long. They have tracks up to 30-40 minutes long and albums running over 2 hours. But with that time, they're able to slow cook, build up, and just create mind-bending worlds and highly hypnotic passages that put you in a trance. And it all pays off with an explosion of sound at some points that's able to hit every corner of your ear, and it's just endlessly satisfying. And sometimes it's in a very abrasive and noisy way, or sometimes it's in a very subtle drone and ominous way. Now, Live Rope is a bit of a different album because Swans usually does these fundraiser albums before they decide to release their actual album. But the thing is, these live albums are some of the best live albums of all time, and they're just the fundraiser for their actual album they're working on. And Live Rope here is, once again, another instance of Swans getting so close to perfection that it is truly haunting. I think the last time Swans quite peaked like this was in their trilogy, which is one of the greatest trilogies in music history, by the way. On the album The Glowing Man, what Swans was able to capture in that album was something so far beyond music, it was otherworldly. They basically captured spiritual ascension in music form, and it's an album that was so close to perfection that I deadass almost shed a tear when I first listened to that album, and that is only the second best album in the trilogy. And with Live Rope, we get another serving of Swans' mastermind, Michael Gira, and the rest of the gang, able to capture something so beyond music in this album that it is fascinating. It's peaks like this in their discography that makes me easily cement them as my pick for the best band of all time. And it's not like this is a one-off thing. This happens very often. And Live Rope, this fundraiser album for their actual album, which I guess will release in 2025, which I am now extremely hyped for. Probably my most anticipated album of the last 5 years now, because Swans is back in peak form and they are not messing around at all. Swans is the master of building experiences and executing walls of sound, drone, or even manic mumbling at the highest level. It's able to express things that are not describable with words, and it's able to capture something quite uncanny in music form. Let's play a sample. I don't know if this will get muted or not, because technically this is an exclusive album, but if it does, then it does. Oh well. You'll just have to buy this album or try to find it somewhere. I mean, it is worth buying. This is one hell of an album. Damn, I regret not getting this vinyl so much. But anyways, let's play a sample and we'll move on into the next album. Next up, we finally have the follow-up album from the duo Magdalena Bay with Imaginal Disc, a neo-psych and progressive synth-pop album. And finally, many people have been anticipating the follow-up album to their debut in 2021, Mercurial World, which at the time was one of the best art pop albums of the decade. And now, not like that album aged poorly or anything, I think they just blew all of their albums out of the water with Imaginal Disc, which is quite literally one of the best pop albums I've heard in a very long time. And I think this album easily cements itself as the absolute best pop album of the decade so far. Yeah, the best, not one of, the best. Number one. What the duo is able to pull off here is nothing short of fascinating. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure they did have a background of a band in a progressive rock type of sound. Well, what they do here is they bring their new, fresh approach to art pop and synth pop, and they combine it with their progressive rock mindset, and they're able to craft their magnum opus as one of the most luscious, ethereal, psychedelic, and dense albums of the year, which completely gaps every album they've ever done so far. And it's not like all of their other projects were bad or anything, they were fantastic. But this album here is punching with the force of the greats. It has somewhat of a familiar sound at points, calling back to a lot of the classic pop styles in like the 80s with like ABBA and stuff, but they're able to bring in their groundbreaking and fresh approach, making their own style of progressive synth pop that is endlessly satisfying. It's a spacey, passionate, and futuristic concept album with Mika's best vocal performances yet that leave you in complete awe at many points in the album, and Matt refining and mastering the production here, making this album so grand and adventurous yet still tying everything together, making it flawless and seamless. Like, the transitions on this album are so satisfying, and that goes for all the other little details as well, as they're all able to add up and combine into a project that is near perfect. Like, when you go down this track list, you get a new favorite track every time you listen to it, and they're all competing with each other with how great they are individually, but also as an album experience. Like, you have some of the best, or just straight up the best pop songs of the decade lined up track after track on this album. Their way of refining their boundary pushing style while still staying highly accessible and catchy. Just like Shoo Shoo, they don't sacrifice any hint of creativity because they're still able to build and progress each track into an explosion of vibrant colors that sometimes gets overwhelming. This album offers some peaks of pop music that I don't think I've heard anywhere else. It is really that good, and they're not backed by any crazy list of producers or 5 billion engineers working on the album. It's just a duo here with elite musicianship and endless passion and creativity that's able to resonate all over in this album. This is definitely a must listen album, and man, how is Magdalena Bay gonna follow up this album now? Let's play a sample and we'll move on into the final album on the list. And we have made it. Number one, top one, my most favorite album of the year. I don't think this is the best album of the year. It is pretty close, but I do separate best and favorite. But that's a discussion for a whole other time. But man, this album, this definitely would be my pick for my most favorite of the year. And it is none other than Makami with Haitian, an abstract hip-hop and jazz rap album. Makami, former member of Griselda, a collective of some of the best pens and performers in the game, with names like Conway the Machine. Makami was definitely one of the best, if not the best, in the collective, but it's been a long while since Makami was a part of Griselda, and on his own, I would put him beside names like Black Thought, Billy Woods, because he is on that level. I mean, Black Thought has a feature verse on this album, and Makami is able to keep up with his verse or even fight on equal footing with his verse, which is absolutely unheard of on a Black Thought feature. This Makami album is also special because it is his first solo album since 2021's Pray for Haiti, and this new album here does still focus on that political side and the whole crime aspect, but it also is much more of a reflective and introspective album from Makami, with some tracks diving into earlier parts in his life or referencing certain events. Now, it's quite hard to take apart a Makami album because, of course, he does not give any lyrics, which I do respect from an artistic integrity point of view, but it does get a little bit pretentious. Like, come on, you could at least have some of your lyrics on your vinyl releases, but hey, you always gotta respect the artist's decision. But you know, for a $3,000 vinyl, I would expect it to come with some lyrics maybe. That aside, this has some of the most smoothest, technical, and complex performances we've seen from Makami. You can tell he's been doing this for a long time, and he has been, because he's been doing this since like the whole MF Doom era. Like, his flow is so unfathomable at points. At one point in this album, he's able to string a 14-syllable rhyme scheme for a whole minute straight, and every time you listen to it, it just drops your jaw on the ground. Completely mind-blowing. And there are many, many moments of his technical skill and rapping of that style on this album, and it isn't just nothing burgers. Of course, I would love to prove it with some lyrics as well, but Makami decides to keep those to himself. But after multiple listens, this is probably one of my most listened albums of the year, next to the Lustig Puppy album. At some point, you're able to break down his absolutely insane flow work and rhyme schemes on this album, and pick apart some of the core concepts and themes that are laced within these tracks. A very underrated part of Makami is also his humor and some of his punchlines as well, but as a whole, Makami is very underrated. Production-wise, on this album, usually Makami is more leaning into that abstract style, but this time we get some more accessible approaches on this album, with some very soulful sampling and just fantastic production work that scratches the right part of your brain, and sometimes even some hooky, catchy parts on this album as well. If I was introducing someone to Mak's discography, I would definitely recommend them this album first, even if this album still has many, many depths and layers. I mean, he does have that synergy with working with some of the best producers out ever, with names like The Alchemist, Derringer, Conductor, usually found in that underground hip-hop pocket, in that grimy style. But yeah, this album is just a bit more accessible compared to his usual heady and abstract style. I mean, we have a K-Tronada production credit on this album, and you could probably guess that Makami completely nails that track and almost makes it seem like it's a natural thing. The production is definitely a highlight for me on this album, but still, the thing that takes it away on this album is Makami's performance, as he's able to not have a single bad or subpar verse in its entire runtime, and it's kind of unfortunate for all the features on this album because they just get completely bodied and just get blown out of the way, other than Black Thought, of course. And we got no bummy features here. We got Rock Marciano, the God Fahim, and Droog, yet he's able to out-rap them all and honestly deliver some of the most impressive feats I've seen in a hip-hop album ever. Its rhyme schemes and syllable manipulation at the absolute highest level, with infectious flows and near flawless performances backed with some real classy production. It's honestly all you could ask for in a hip-hop album. What Makami did here does remind me of what Kendrick did in 2015 on TPAP. In some ways, this album is a victory lap or a come-up story told in effortlessly skilled fashion. It's conscious, it's funny, it's enjoyable, and is backed with some production that could feed the soul, and it's quite literally a hip-hop masterclass. Some of my favorite songs of the year are on this album, of course, and with tracks like Copy Code, I think there are some contenders for songs of the decade, because Makami and Black Thought performing at this level on the same track is just absolutely mind-blowing. It's truly like you're witnessing a fever dream. It's so damn good that it gets you thinking so hard that it puts you in a cold sweat. How the hell did they manage to do this, bruh? There's only a handful of people on the level of Makami in the world right now, and with this album that becomes even more apparent. But yeah, let's play a sample or two before I start yapping on too long, and then we'll close off the video.
Some told me niggas was shook daddy off the vocals. I'm not no local yokel, I flip you like a kush baggy out the mobile. Trailer parks with good fatties, got proposals. Let them jokers write where they was acting hood ratty at the social. Jacking moguls, packing max and back and axe my jacket global. Spend a couple racks and make you do the cabbage patch and bogle. You can tell them that I'm never napping. That's a no-no. Been through hell and back. I had to piss for crackers, crack for popo. When I'm at consistent, pass some tissue, pass some Nasanoko. While we roll this Amico and get it cracking Acapulco. Finish my energy half past the limit. No gimmick grimace, I'm dealing these packs. Master image, y'all think I'm winning. The kidding me, smash cats for living. The kidding me, hazmat and linen. Oh man, winning, my friend and me, glad rap the business. Witness my melody, hashtag suspicious. Some niggas wasting a sentence. Tennis shoes cheaper than interviews when you half-ass. Remember, half-ass beginner, ain't no love in the inner. Way the fuck you might shiver. Niggas, chiropractors all hasten, order their head on collision. Hey homie, let him money.
And there it was, my top most favorite albums of the year. Let me know what your favorite albums of the year was. Incredibly stacked year. Link to the playlist, the full list, everything down there. Discord as well. Come join it. We do need more music people in the Discord. But yeah, that's it. It's been John Boogle and see ya.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay.